Do not call members of the LGBTQ plus community groomers because you might get sued for defamation. This case, as I will get to, is now moving forward because the motion to try and dismiss it over free speech was completely thrown out. Meaning, if you are specifically in Ontario in this case, at the very least, maybe the rest of Canada, you can, in fact, be sued for defamation for calling members of the protected class, that is the LGBTQ plus community, calling them groomers. This case is so interesting because when I first heard about this, I thought that, like, I have no issue with it because I'm not an asshole, but I thought, does this infringe on free speech in some way? But the reality is, this is hate speech. If you are trying to baselessly claim that a specific, and it isn't even just like a general statement here. We're talking about a specific target on individuals who are holding a drag time story hour event. If you are directing these groomer accusations at a specific target of people who then face repercussions because of that, then your so-called free speech that is based on nothing but your bullshit should not be protected. So the Ontario Superior Court of Justice ruled on December 14th that groomer slurs targeting members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community, I'm just going to say LGBT because it's too much, are not protected by Ontario's anti-slap law and may be the subject of a defamation claim. So this is around the Rainbow Alliance Dryden v. Webster case. And as I will get to here, Mr. Webster, so Brian Webster, he runs a popular Facebook page in Northwestern Ontario. He posted on his page containing images of a CBC News article. The article was about drag events organized by Rainbow Alliance Dryden, a pride organization, including a drag time event at the local public library. Webster's post referred to the plaintiffs as groomers, asserting that's the agenda. So here is text from his post. You already know they're deranged when they start with the all caps, but here you go. Ask yourself why these people need to perform for children. Groomers, that's the agenda. And by the way, these drag time story hour events have been going on forever. Just recently, they've been faced with a lot of attacks because of new right-wing propaganda that is very focused on them, largely, from what I was seeing, initially coming from the U.S., and now, of course, whatever garbage starts in the U.S. eventually makes its way to Canada. So that's the genesis of all of this. But groomers, that's the agenda. Just look at the face of one child in the photo. That's all you need, or it tells you all you need to know. Okay. Your tax dollars pay John Thompson to promote this stuff. Hashtag defund CPC. So their argument was, hey, their defense here was saying, oh, my post was about trying to defund the CBC, which is a very, I wouldn't say normal, but it's an opinion that is out there that the CBC, which is Canada's public broadcaster, should be defunded. That's what this post was about. But it's clearly not just about that. You can't ignore everything you said first. So the judge came out saying the alleged defamatory post was not a commentary on the use of tax dollars, but rather it relates to the motivations and conduct of the organizers of and participants in a community event. The plaintiffs argue that Webster's choice of words, quote unquote, groomers, ask yourself why these people need to perform for children, falsely associates the plaintiffs to SLGBTQI identities with that word I can't say on YouTube, and implies that they are dangerous to children. These are not matters of public interest. So this gets to why this attempt to try and kick out this case was denied, because this is not a matter of you calling somebody groomers who aren't groomers. It should be clear, not just somebody, but a protected class, calling them groomers when there's a history of that sort of hate speech being used against them. Basically calling them groomers is not in the public interest. So there's no reason to defend this specific speech. And I would add, especially when there were repercussions to the plaintiff, to those drag queens or that event because of that speech. So The judge also says here, quote, if the post merely questioned the propriety of drag story time for children or expressed his opinion that drag story time is not appropriate for children, I may have been inclined to find that the matter was social commentary and public interest speech. So this is also very important because he wasn't just posting an opinion here. He's saying they are groomers. That's the agenda. This is not, in my opinion, these drag time story events are not good for children because blah, 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 which still, in my opinion, would be ridiculous. But that's more defendable in the eyes of the court because at least there you're clearly stating your opinion. This person is just baselessly saying, oh, these individuals, these specific individuals at this event, they're groomers when they're not. And this was the CBC News post that the Facebook post linked to. And then there were also a lot of other just completely unhinged responses on that Facebook post. Someone saying it's a mental illness that's been allowed and enabled for far too long, calling them deranged. And of course, the word I can't say. Can we hunt and can we buy tags to hunt these animals? These people are crazy. So get your wrist rocket out and start. Okay, look at this shit. More grooming, guardians of the word I can't say, and yeah, more of that. More of this insanity. Just completely unhinged individuals. It's so, to be clear, these people, as far as I understand, are not faced with a defamation case. It's the initial post from that Facebook account that led to a lot of this reaction. So the one of the lawyers for the plaintiffs here saying, hopefully this will stand as an example of how our laws protect members of vulnerable communities that are subject to very targeted online hate speech and harassing commentary that is causing reputational damage and frankly distress in their everyday lives. So I also want to just credit here this piece from Luc Lebrun, great writer, Press Progress, great outlet, really breaking down this case here. And the so this will continue, of course. The defamation case, the defeat of Webster's anti-SLAPP motion means that the case can now proceed to a full trial to determine if he defamed the plaintiffs. So the plaintiffs are seeking over $190,000 in damages. So yeah, to be clear, the actual defamation case is not over. He may still win the case, but the point is the case is allowed to continue. And why shouldn't it? If you throw out these baseless claims like this that are targeting vulnerable communities, I mean, look, I know in America this is blasphemy. How dare you not allow me to say anything I want, regardless of how ridiculous and lie-filled it is. But in Canada, there are a little more restrictions around speech in terms of hate speech, in terms of if the speech is in the public interest, as in this case it is not. So you have to be a little more careful. And in my opinion, as someone who has grown up in this sort of world, that's a positive. Because it essentially, yes, there are, I'm sure there are cases that you could argue maybe are a little more risky or not worth, not worth the time to fight. But largely, from what I have seen, it perpetuates it facilitates, I should say, a better culture because it does not, you can't just run wild and just say ridiculous shit, throwing people under the bus who are, again, members of protected classes like the LGBTQ community who have been subject to, decades of hate. It allows good people to live their lives without the fear of being attacked by lunatics. We're going to see how this defamation case moves forward and, what comes out of this. But ultimately, this is sort of a big deal because of how often the term groomer is used by the right to try and paint, drag time story hour, or really the community, the LGBTQ community as a whole, as, trying to groom children or trying to prey on children. It's really disgusting, and that's really, again, come up more recently because of all the recent attacks on trans people, which is not, to be clear, trans people and drag queens are two separate things. But the initial attacks on or the growing attacks on the trans community, especially starting in the US, has led to greater attacks on other members, including drag queens, and that has risen up to Canada, and we see a lot of this bullshit now too. So I am curious to see what the result is in this defamation case.